Hello everybody, this is Jim with Compliance Professionals. Today I'm going to talk to you about an important topic, heat exhaustion and heat stroke. You've all noticed it's hot out. Not only is it hot out, but it's humid out also. You take that heat and that humidity with very little wind and you put it together. Some of you could have heat exhaustion. Speaking of that, has anybody ever had heat exhaustion besides me? I think a lot of us have. Let's talk a little bit about what our bodies do to prevent heat exhaustion and heat stroke. So what do we all do? We're out working away. You're on the job. I don't care what you're doing. You might be mowing a lawn. You might be underneath a car working, changing the oil. It really doesn't make much difference, but you're outside. It's really hot and it's high humidity. Working away, and all of a sudden you start to feel a little lightheaded. You don't have a lot of energy. You're a little concerned because you're thirsty, but you know what? I'm going to push right on through and get this job done before I drink any water. You're on the way to heat exhaustion. So here is what our bodies do. Number one, when it's hot out, what do our bodies do? You perspire, you sweat a lot. My gosh, your shirt can be soaked, your underwear is soaked, your pants are soaking wet. You're sweating just as hard as you possibly can. That's the brain telling the body it's getting too hot out and I have to cool off. So it sends out beads of sweat. They might be all over your arms, your neck, everywhere. Beads of sweat are on your arm and the body is hoping for a little breeze to come along because it acts as dehydration and it blows across those little balls of sweat, pieces of sweat that's running down your arm, and when it does that, it dehydrates all of it. It acts as a cooling event is taking place right there on your arm. Your body also does one other thing. It pushes blood up all along, right up around the surface of your arms in hopes that the blood will get the cooling effect of that dehydration. And then the blood dives back down into the body, into the core portion of your body, and it cools you down. That's the cooling effect that takes place for us. Now, what happens if all of a sudden it's hotter outside than it is inside your body? Well, that's a bad combination that's going on. It might be 100 degrees outside. The inside of your body is 98.6 degrees. And so here we are trying to cool things off, but the only thing that happens is we've got a layer of sweat on our arms, and that's not going to cool us off at all. It ends up being more of a problem. No cooling is taking place. Your body keeps pushing more and more and more perspiration out until eventually the brain says, whoa, stop. I'm not going to do that anymore. I need the rest of the liquids that are inside my body to take care of my blood, take care of my organs, take care of my brain, so I can at least think a little bit. So I've decided no longer to sweat. No more perspiration is going to come out. Well, that's a bad scenario right there starting to happen. When we stop sweating, all of a sudden our body temperature goes straight up. We're getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Then our heartbeat starts to beat faster. And then our blood pressure starts to go up also. This is a bad combination that's taking place. I don't care if you're at home, but even especially if you're at work and you're trying to be safety conscious, very bad what's happening. The reason I'm talking about this is because you need to be able to recognize the symptoms for heat exhaustion. It can be very, very damaging to you. So all of a sudden you can't think quite as good as you used to be able to. You're not paying quite as much attention. You start to feel dizzy when you're walking around, and you start to lose focus. As a matter of fact, I've talked to some people this past month who have said they started to lose their vision. It got so bad. Now, this is heat exhaustion, and your temperature can go up 101 to 102 degrees. Nobody feels good when you have a temperature of 101 to 102 degrees. The next step after that is heat stroke. You can die from heat stroke. It's when you don't get any attention to heat exhaustion. And eventually, you're going to sit down on the ground or pass out onto the ground. With heat stroke, your temperature can go up to 105 degrees. If you're still awake, you might get something done about it. People will eventually find you on the ground, and they'll have to do something about it. They're going to call the rescue squad. They'll come out. They'll go, is this guy still breathing? Does he have a pulse? Yeah, oh my gosh, he's burning up. He's having heat stroke. They're going to throw you in the back of the truck. They take some scissors and they cut all your clothes off of you. They pack ice around you in your armpits, down on your thighs. And their main goal is to get you to cool down. Then they're also going to stick a couple IVs right in your arms to get liquid into you, and off you go to the hospital because they're trying to save your life. If you have heat stroke, you could be in the hospital a couple weeks, and you probably won't be back to work for 3 or 4 weeks. With heat exhaustion, you could be out of work for a week. You feel so absolutely horrible. Okay, I've described heat stroke. I've described heat exhaustion. Let's talk a little bit about what you can do to prevent it, because we're on the prevention side, right? We want to make sure none of these things happen to you. So what's the best thing to drink? I could ask everybody to raise their hands out there. The best thing to drink, water. There's no substitute for it. They haven't come up with anything yet. Now, there's some people that are saying, well, what about Gatorade? Things like that. Yeah, a little bit of that's okay, but not much. I have a really good friend, Jay. Jay replaces air conditioners up on roofs. It's a horrible job. I don't know how he does it. It's just terrible. He's up there all summer long putting in these air conditioners, and it must be 105, 110 up there on those roofs. I don't know. But Jay said, I'm losing so many liquids, I'm going to drink some Gatorade. So on the way to work, he bought those 3 great big bottles like this, and all day long, Jay's drinking Gatorade. All of a sudden one day, Jay came down with a bad case of kidney stones. Stumbled into the doctor's office, and the doctor says, hey, you're a really young guy. You really shouldn't have kidney stones. Do you drink any water? And Jay says, no, doc, I don't really drink water. I drink Gatorade. And the doctor kind of hit his forehead and said, you do realize you're producing your own kidney stones by doing that, don't you? Jay goes like this. He says, yeah, it's full of minerals. It's full of sugar. If you want to put a little bit in there with your water, that's fine. But never drink Gatorade all day long. It's terrible for you. Here's what you should be doing. This is what the doc said. Drink water. And when do you start drinking water? When you first get out of bed. Right after you go to the bathroom, walk over to the sink, get a glass of water, and drink it. Your body will love you for it because you haven't had anything to drink anywhere from 4 to 8 hours. So start drinking water when you first get up, and you drink water all day long. And then you should have some snacks in between. Good food, fruits, bananas, apples, oranges, grapes, things like that, a few snacks, and then with your lunch. That's going to replace the minerals that you are losing all the time. You do that and you're going to be okay. You won't have heat exhaustion. You won't have heat stroke. Drink lots and lots of liquids. Okay, I've got one other thing that I've got to mention to everybody, and some information is going to be delivered to you in regards to performing the annual inspection of personal fall arrest systems. I'll just give you a brief description of this information. You'll be receiving it. You're going to receive some inspection forms that will contain criteria for inspection. Here's what some of the forms are. Number one, a full body harness. You'll receive information on the criteria for inspection. On your lanyards, which includes, by the way, the D-ring extenders. On your tie-off adapters. On your hooks and your carabiners. On the anchorage plates. On your self-retracting lifelines. And then we also want to tell you, if you have any questions in regards to any of this information, you need to get a hold of Dave Fuller, your safety director. The most important thing I want you to remember on everything that we've talked about today in regards to fluids and the intake of that, in regards to the inspection of all of your equipment, I want you to be safe, guys. That's the most important thing. Thanks very much. I'll talk to you next month.